Switching from Apple to Google. What exactly do I mean by switching from Apple to Google? Now, both companies, they provide hardware, they provide operating systems, applications, and services. They're kind of similar in that way. And for the most part, I have changed over everything that I can from Apple to Google with only a few exceptions. I don't recommend this for everyone, as I still strongly feel that Apple is a great solution for a lot of people really out there. I still use a Mac desktop computer for my heavy lifting as my main daily computer. I do my video editing, most of my work on it. But my family still all use iPhones, which was something I really needed to consider when I switched over to Google. Why did I do it? It all started with the Chromebook. Now, I purchased a Chromebook to replace my MacBook Pro since I'd already had an iMac desktop computer as my main workhorse. And I figured a Chromebook, it would do pretty much everything I needed when I wanted to be portable. As it turned out, my Chromebook exceeded my expectations, and now my entire family uses them as their main laptop computers. And just recently, I purchased my first Google Home and fell in love with the concept. I love the way I can access my smart home devices and automate my life just by using my voice. I even went out and bought a bunch more of the Google Home system so I could access Google Home in more areas of my house and my office. My kids got their own units for Christmas, along with a family music plan. The one thing I realized was that Google Home works best if you're using Google services, like their calendar and contacts, for instance. If you want to access this info on your Google Home, then you need to make sure your calendar and contact info is in the Google Cloud. At first, I achieved this from my Apple iPhone using third-party apps that sync my Apple Calendar and Contacts info with Google Calendar and Contacts. At this point, I started to kind of wonder, why was I using Apple hardware if I was becoming so Google integrated? Now, the last straw that led me to decide to switch from Apple to Google was when I bought a Samsung Gear Sport Smart Fitness watch. I tried to use it with my Apple iPhone, only to find out it was crippled in so many ways when paired with an iPhone rather than an Android phone. I could only really do basic stuff with the Samsung watch paired to my iPhone, and when it came to adding more applications to the Samsung Gear Sport Smart Fitness watch, none of the apps I really wanted were available, like Record, MyFitnessPal. A lot of the activity or sport apps weren't there for me. And the thing was, I really loved the Samsung Gear Sport watch, since it had great design, was superior to my older first-gen Apple Watch in many ways, and its optical heart rate monitor was actually the first one that worked for me. That was it. I decided to switch from Apple to Google. So what Android devices did I get? Well, I got the Samsung Gear Sport Smart Fitness watch, and so that replaced my Apple Watch. For my iPhone replacement, I did some research and I ended up getting the Samsung Galaxy S8 Plus Android phone. I was also considering the Google Pixel 2, but really liked the design and the Samsung Galaxy S8 screen. The screen on the S8 is simply amazing. And as you know, a while back, I switched to a Chromebook. My current Chromebook is the Asus Flip C302, which is a 12.5-inch Chromebook with a touch display that works in either tablet or desktop modes. Now, things to consider when switching from Google to Apple. Calendars and contacts, we kind of covered already, but you will need to get your Apple calendars and contacts over to Google Calendars and Contacts. There are a few ways to do this. There was even some software on my new phone to help with transferring my iPhone data over to my Android phone, including calendars and contacts. I could have even brought over my photos and movies this way, but I chose to use Google Photos instead. I recommend Google Photos to everyone, no matter if you're using an Apple or Android phone. Why wouldn't you? Google Photos, it's free, the space is unlimited, and the quality is very good. It allows you to bring your movies over at 1080p and your photos over at 16 megapixel quality. Now, it does compress your photo and video files, but it still keeps the quality very, very good. All you need to do is download the app on your device, and Google Photos starts uploading your photos and movies to the cloud, where you can view them and share them on any device. Now, these photos are not stored on your Google Drive. It's a different setup, so don't worry about using up all your Google Drive space. They're not linked that way. So that was a no-brainer, and not having to buy extra Apple iCloud storage and constantly getting your iCloud is full warnings is a super huge bonus. My entire family now has Google Photos on their iPhones, and we can share everything back and forth. Something else I had to consider was Find My Phone location services. Was I going to lose this by moving over to Android? Well, no. There is an app for that. I use an app on my Samsung Galaxy S8 called XFI Locator, which allows me to tap into Apple location sharing services. All I need to do is log in with my Apple credentials, and since I use this setup with my Apple Family Location services, I then have access to my entire family's phone locations. I can also use this same app to locate my Android devices, so I have it on my Chromebook and on my Samsung Galaxy S8 to find either one if I need to. What about Apple FaceTime? My family doesn't use FaceTime a lot. We see enough of each other most days, but it is nice when I travel, so I wanted a solution for this. I went with Google Duo. Why not? Why not go with Google Duo? I could have gone with Skype, but since I'm switching to Google, I went with Google Duo as it seemed like the logical choice. And again, you can download Google Duo to an iPhone, and it sets up super quickly by simply entering in your phone number as your username. Once you're in Google Duo, it's really easy to link to your other contacts. Online storage and documents. I was already using Google Drive and Dropbox as my online storage choices, so there was really no change there as these options work on pretty much every device already. Same with my documents like Word and Excel. I was primarily using Google Docs for this, so no change was required here either. Now, if you're using iCloud for your online document storage, I'd recommend you switch things over to Google Drive. Apple Mail. Apple has their two-factor authentication, which does make setting up your Apple Mail on an Android device a little more complicated than an iPhone, but it can be done by creating a device-specific password. Now, you may have to do this online using your Apple ID through Apple's Apple ID webpage. Other miscellaneous apps. Now, when it comes to most apps, you can generally find all the same popular apps for Android as you would find on your iOS phone. And for the most part, they look and work about the same, but be prepared for a little bit of weirdness since some features may work differently on each platform. Getting used to the Android interface. Now keep in mind, I've been using an Apple iPhone since the very first version came out, so I'm not going to lie. There was some getting used to the new interface, and is one system OS better than the other? Well, not really. Apple offers, I'd say, a bit more simplicity with pretty much the same user experience from phone to phone. Android phones are more customizable, which means one phone can look and navigate completely different than another Android phone. Companies also like to throw their own custom interfaces on their devices to perhaps differentiate themselves a little. At the end of the day, I can get around on my Samsung Galaxy S8 just as easily and quickly, maybe even quicker in some instances, as I did on my Apple iPhone. Do I regret switching from Apple to Google? It's a big question, and I was wondering that myself going into this. And when I first made the jump, I was a little bit worried. I knew I had some work ahead of me doing some research to figure out some workarounds between the devices. Well, I'm happy to say I'm very pleased with the decision at the end of the day. Not only am I educated about the different phone options out there, which I really wasn't before, but I feel that at least for me at this point in my life, switching from Apple to Google was the right decision. I feel I have more options available to me now when it comes to hardware choices for phones, and especially fitness tech devices. Apple does like to keep their hardware and software a bit more closed, which can be limiting at times. Google, on the other hand, is more open when it comes to cross-compatibility, offering most of their apps and applications to be run on pretty much any device. Yes, some Google-based hardware will not work so well with Apple devices, but this is more of an Apple control issue, meaning Apple does not always play well with others. That's kind of the big problem with Apple. To sum it up, I'd say Apple acts more like the introvert, whereas Google is more of the extrovert. And to be honest, at this point in my life, I kind of feel like hanging out with the more outgoing and fun kids. And so far, I'm not missing my iPhone whatsoever. Alright, thanks for watching another GetFitOver40.com video. I'm not telling you to switch to a Google phone or switch from Apple to Google or whatever. I'm just saying, maybe it's for you, maybe it's not. It was for me, and I'm happy with my choice. Alright, take care.